Now, following the defeat of several experienced members of Parliament, how will the composition of the ninth Parliament shape up, and what impact will this have on the quality of debate in the Legislative House? Joining me is Dr. Rashid Rahman, Executive Director of African Center for Parliamentary Affairs, ACEPA. Doc, thank you for your time, and you're welcome to your election central. Good afternoon.
Thank you very much for having me.
Doc, so the attrition rate in Parliament has always been an issue of governance, where people think that we must find a way of sometimes keeping experienced House members in the House at every election. What do you make of the current situation that we're seeing now, the sweeping of most of the experienced in that House and the new faces we're yet to have in the ninth Parliament?
Well, first of all, your line is very faint. I can hear you very hardly. But if what I heard is you're asking about the attrition rate, the
Right.
experienced members.
Yes.
And okay. So I think in terms of the attrition rate, every election cycle, I think we've always had between 40 and 50%. And I think this is not different, and it has always created problems. But let me stay with this one. Apart from the rate, I think the disturbing part of it is the number of experienced MPs, particularly from the MPP side, who are not returning to the House at a time when we are going to see what we have never seen before in our country. One party having, I think, almost 2/3 majority in the House. It needs to be checked. It needs experienced hands whose responsibility it would be to undertake all the key oversight activities that are needed. We are not going to see the NDC checking itself. That one, we will just simply have to forget about it. We need the opposition to hold them in check. And if you have most of the experienced hands that are that would have hopefully been doing that important job, then I think you can foresee a situation where we are returning to the days of the 7th, the 6th, and the 5th parliaments. Because in the 8th Parliament, despite what everybody would say about its performance, we saw some serious oversight in action. We saw government being challenged every now and then. Is that going to continue with these crashing numbers and with the absence of the experienced hands, particularly from the other side? We are going to have some challenges.
But what if voters monitored what happened in Parliament maybe in the latter days and thought that from the voting pattern, they obviously were not happy with the majority side of the 8th Parliament, and so they think that they should change the whole 8th Parliament and bring in more new people or new brains, and let's see how that also shapes out.
Well, I am not too sure whether it was that. I think the parliamentarians suffered from maybe the blames that have been heaped on the government when Ghanaians went to the polls. I don't think it has very much to do with the voting pattern and so on. I mean, that might have played some kind of minimal role. Of course, I mean, those events coming very close to elections, the Supreme Court and all those things, we can't discount them. But I believe the fate of the parliamentarians was very much tied to the fate of the party and the performance of the government in general. Because Ghanaians were really angry. I mean, Ghanaians were really, really angry. And I think everybody was waiting to get a ballot in their hands and then to go and demonstrate their anger. And I think that in the process, our MPs became casualties of all the anger against their various parties.
So, well, with the situation that we have, whether we like it or not, that is the current constitutional structure. We will have to vote every 4 years and take this decision. How do you think Parliament's leadership should, perform or shape our things so that we still don't lose the quality that we've built over time?
Two things here. I think the first thing is, look, the quality of governance that we get in a democracy, I think, first of all, depends on how much citizens are willing to tolerate. But we, the citizens, we don't have very much power in between elections. So the second part of it is how much our MPs are willing to tolerate and perhaps go to bed with those who are in power. And so for me, the lesson here is if our MPs from both sides decide to sleep on their oversight responsibilities and don't hold the government to account, even if it's their own government, we are going to see that anger repeated. And we are going to see the same kind of fate befalling the experienced MPs, particularly those who will be in power from January 2nd. So what am I saying? I think the key message here is that oversight should be the responsibility of all of them. They should not think that because it is our government, we don't want to embarrass our own government and so on. It's better to embarrass your government, get measures corrected, corrective measures in place in order to avoid this kind of longer-term catastrophe that has befallen members of the 8th Parliament.
Dr. Rashid Rahman, Executive Director for African Center for Parliamentary Affairs. We're grateful for speaking to us here on your Election Central. Thank you. Right, now.